Welcome, televiewers, to another episode of The Interview, a program where we have frank discussion with various Ambazonian stakeholders and personality across the globe. My name is Capo, and this is the third episode. Today is the fourth day of the month of April 2021. It is actually the fifth day here in Hong Kong. So we are going to be interfacing with Ambazonians in Canada, in Europe, as well, to have this frank conversation. You're all welcome, and thank you for allowing us into your room across the globe on our national television, the Ambazonian Communication Network, ACN. Thank you, and we want to welcome my co-panelist and host, Mr. Lucas Asu, as well, who is in Canada.
And happy Easter to all of you. We're very happy to have the third episode of the interview. Today we will have the truth and nothing but the truth in terms of Ambazonia diplomacy. We have two people that are the Ambazonian powerhouse in terms of diplomacy. The Vice President of Governing Council of Ambazonia, Dr. Julius Nyih, and the Secretary of State of the Governing Council of Ambazonia, Dr. Larry Ayamba. This is going to be an extraordinary and a very informative interview. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I think we are going to have on the interface, so our the technical staff can bring the pictures of Dr. Nyih, who is a professor in Ireland and the Vice President of the Ambazonia Governing Council. Congratulations, sir, and for your new election, the new mandate you have had from the people across the globe from the various 20 Ambazonian Governing Council mission. Congratulations on your election, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Capo. Thank you very much, co-host, Mr. Lucas Asu. I salute you all, viewers of ACN, the Ambazonian Communication Network in Ground Zero, Ground One, in the diaspora, in short, across the globe and even into space. I'm delighted to be here today. I am also appreciative of the mantle that the Ambazonian people gave me to assist Dr. Cho Ayamba in the prosecution of our War of Independence. It's going to be very interesting again for the next 4 years. And I am not leading you, I will be serving you. Thanks a lot.
And also, we want to also welcome Dr. Larry Ayamba. And he's the son of a great man, a patriot of our nation, His Royal Highness Chief Ayamba Eta Utum. Dr. Larry, you are highly welcome on ACN.
Thank you for having me, and happy Easter to you all, and happy Easter to all Ambazonians.
Today, we are going to have a very frank conversation with these two gentlemen of high caliber in the governing council, and Ambazonian across the globe are watching. This is our third episode. This program have become the definition of the standard of Ambazonia, and our international partners and friends will be watching as well. So, gentlemen, we are not going to waste a lot of time. We know Dr. Nyih and Dr. Lade are very busy people, especially with the temperature in diplomacy is getting higher and higher by the day. So, Mr. Lucas, I don't know if you want to say something to welcome this gentleman. Otherwise, I will just hit the road straight and going.
No, well, all I want to say is we are extremely grateful that the Vice President and the Secretary of State, have taken the time to join us on this interview. As you know, this is almost like what a lot of people, Don Pacho used to call his hot seat. On this show, our guests, we grill them on the toughest questions. So Ambazonians should be prepared to have a very sincere, frank, honest, and no BS conversation with the leaders of our diplomacy.
Oh yes, oh yes. This is one of those shows and platforms that the governing council have put for service to our nation It's not a partisan platform. It's a nationalist platform. And Dr. Larry, we want to start with you. You know, you come from a wonderful line of Chief Ayamba, the local, the font of Unku. Forgive me if I call that name wrongly, from Imoyojok district. I don't know who is now the font of your village. I thought that you should be the chief of your village. You know how it is done in our tradition.
One of the things you have to do is that the chieftaincy is not hereditary. So the people have to get some other person to replace uh, the chief after it's passing away.
Or the great state of Manu have always been very prominent in standing for Ambazonia, and Pa Chief Ayamba, who led the SCNC, is a pillar stone, and we see him as a foundation stone of Ambazonia. This is a man who have dedicated his life for Ambazonian nationalism, the nationalism of the Southern Cameroon people. We can never forget him. You know, in December 1999, when Justice Ebong and Pa Sobang, they took over the radio station in Boya to announce the independence of the Southern Cameroon territories, now Ambazonia. It brought us pride. And for those of us who hail from the great state of Mezam, the capital city of the Savannah state in Bamenda, we know Pa very well because he was instrumental in naming Sonak Street in Bamenda. How come this pillar Eroko from Manu become a hero in Bamenda? How dynamic Pa was to be a local chief, yet figure so prominently in the affairs of Bamenda.
I was a manager, and he was the manager of the then British Sunak company. And his managerial uh, competence and the way he managed that particular entity called Sunak made it possible for the people to name that street where Sunak was as Sunak Street. And these are the things I tell a lot of people most of the time, even though they are from the northern region or northern zone and from Bamenda itself, they don't even know how the name Sunak Street came about. So it's because Pa was a good manager, managed Sunak very well, and the street got its name from there.
That is really fantastic, and I think that is the type of nation we look forward to in Ambazonia. You know, with the whole SCNC, forgive me if I may, before we get into the current affairs, the SCNC had publication of on some Cameroon major newspaper talking about members of the SCNC being bribed, and there are rumors which I want you to talk a little bit about if you spare us about the prime minister or some elites in the Atlantic state once visited Chief Ayamba to offer bribe. And we are facing the same scenario today where people are being offered bribe by the Cameroon state as a means to suppress demand for separation. Are you aware that your father had been approached to offer bribe? And can you tell the Ambazonian people what actually transpired in that meeting where all the top so-called elites of the Southern Cameroon were brought together in your house, and they were offered huge sum of money to abandon the Ambazonian nationalism and the demand for independence of our state?
Well, it so happened that luckily on that day I was at home. At that time, we were not talking about Ambazonia, we were talking about Southern Cameroon. Um, they were all in Manu for a CPDM meeting, and out of nowhere, It was the late Chipare of Hussein who sent a message to Pa that he will be stopping by on his way back to the village. What we realized was all of a sudden there was a trail of cars in front of the house, and they came in as usual. You don't go to the palace without collar nut. Papa break them collar and the head, and then they started talking, and I wanted to go out. They said, sit down there. And I listened and followed the discussion perfectly well. As he's a man of few words, he listened. The amount was 800 million francs CFA. 800 million francs CFA. The WHO, Efiong, the Peter Agbotadis, the late Oben Peter Ashu, Papa listened. And the next thing he asked them was that, when the talking stopped, he asked them if they are finished. He said yes. Papa never wore trousers. It's always his loincloth and his walking stick. Walked directly to the door, opened the door, and told them, get out of my house and never come back. That's it.
That I think that is the spirit of power and the spirit of leadership that we aspire to be. And it's very important that our people know this story, that this man sacrificed pleasure, the easy way out for not just him and his family. And were you ever offer a post? These things, they come around with posts, and the Cameroon government try to entice you with opposition as well through your father to make things better, like we see across our territory. They offer people positions with their children as well.
Well, they know that I had not to crack, and I was a radical. I was a radical of the first category, but a constructive one. I remember one time they had asked me to leave the SDF and join the CPDM, and it was the Mountain Town Government School field. I was going to go there and wear a t-shirt, promising me, was it 15 million francs CFA? And I agreed. I said I would do it. So they were to give me the money in 2 installments. Before I go, I will be given 8 million francs. And after the occasion, I will be given the balance. And I agreed. It seems as if something got into their head. I said, they told them, listen, that young man, if you give that young man that money, you'll never see him again. And that was my plan. And never did. They just disappeared. And that's why I fought a lot of battles with somebody till I have to leave the country.
And I think, Mr. Press Secretary, Mr. Lucas, this is how the elite class are formed in that country under occupation. They select few families, they give them a lot of money to start running their life, and that's how you see prominent people like late Patrick Ekema. They will go against their own people and do horrible things because they have to protect this interest. We are lucky to have a family like the royal family of the Ayambas who stood for our people, and today we have a fighting chance thanks to dignity like that. You want to follow up, Mr. Lucas?
DDC, you are correct in the fact that it is through such examples as the Pa Ayamba, and today we have Dr. Larry Ayamba serving as the Secretary of State for Ambazonia Governing Council. It is through such examples that Ambazonian people have been able to sustain the positive, constructive resistance of Cameroon occupation. So it is through such examples, and in society you always have corrupt people, but you also have people with moral integrity, such as Pa Ayamba and the examples of Dr. Larry Ayamba. And these are the people that keep a society very stable. So we're very fortunate. We are very fortunate in this generation to have such people to have emerged Dr. Ayamba, the vice president, the secretary of state, and most of the top officials, and within the AGOVC and the ADF. So you always have, in all societies, there are crooks, they are corrupt, they are criminals, but also within every society, you also have moral gentlemen and women with character, with steel, with substance, and with integrity. And those are the people that always make the greatest contribution in the advancement of a people.
And that's true. And let's go to the vice president of the governing council, Dr. Nyih, Julius Nyih.
I know that you have a very interesting question for him. Go ahead.
Oh yes, we cannot wait. The election of the presidents, the executive presidents of the governing council was very intriguing. We had very passionate people who opposed to that election from within the governing council. You have prominent voices like Immaculate, who is a very strong leadership as well. We hope these are the women that we hope to see one day to be elected as the executive president of the governing council. Dr. Julius Nyih, do you think it was really necessary for us to go through this electoral process, having the 20 mission across the globe voting for you guys, where some people were saying, oh, you guys should just continue with the dictatorship? In Africa, they say this thing is hereditary.
I would have to smile to that question, Capo. Thanks a lot for that. No, not at all. See, institutions are built to last in the AGOVC and in most developed political economies in the world. It is the case that even if after this term, if we were to run, we might still win. But it is not in the interest of Ambazonia, and it is not the rationale behind the design of durable institutions. The Ambazonian Governing Council prides itself of strong institutions that are respected, enforced, and cherished by the members of that organization. And one of the instruments within that institution was the elections of leadership, which takes place every 4 years. So it would have been unthinkable. It would have been to play the Cameroon style, to say that we just continue. You had to go back to the population and ask them their opinion. And that was done. A due process was followed. There were challengers to the post of the president, even challenger to the post of the vice president, but some candidates were eliminated in the preliminaries. The AGOVC prides itself of an ideology that is supported by strong institutions, and that is the kind of state that we want to build. We cannot be running away from a colonial state, and at the same time, while prosecuting the war, we prosecute it with crookery, corruption, with bending of rules and regulations. That is not in the chic of an Ambazonian. That is not who we are. That is why we are different. And that couldn't take place, and it will never take place in the Ambazonian Governing Council.
Are we not tribal people? We have to go the style of Mr. Frundi, our chairman. Everybody becomes so familiar with him, and they want to see the same person over and over again. So some people were worried that Dr. Chome lost that election, for goodness sake. And we have seen, I think this is the first institution in the Ambazonian struggle where we have actually seen real election by the rules, and rules being respected. And we congratulate you for that leadership. It takes the right mindset to accept that scrutiny, and we are very proud of the governing council.
DDC, if I may add to what you were saying, it wasn't VP, before you come in. It wasn't only the fact that the elections were conducted. Remember, there was also strong opposition even within AGOVC and within Ambazonians as a whole. Ambazonians were protesting and pressurizing that, why questioning the rationale for the AGOVC to conduct an election in the middle of a liberation struggle, that Dr. Ayamba is the leader, the VP is already there, they should just continue. You've said that, they should just continue. That was the argument. Let's just continue. Why are we doing this? So VP, go ahead, give us the clarity as to why was it important for the elections to take place, and why is it important in terms of the future of Ambazonian for us to start to practice following our own standards, the the rules within the institutions. Why was that important?
Thank you, PS, Comrade Asu. I think one of the things why many countries or many organizations, even in the Ambazonian War of Independence, have fallen short, including the SCACUF, the interim governments, whether it's that of the pastors or the one in Kondengian, South Africa, it's because they lack strong institutions. By strong institutions, they're not just the rules, they have the rules. Institutions are effective in their implementation, enforcement, and upholding them by those that are given the mantle to protect and to implement those institutions. So it would have been unthinkable for Dr. Cho, as I know him, to simply, including myself, to simply accept it. Why many African countries fail, it's sometimes not so much about the leadership, but also the population becomes complacent when they have somebody good. But also they think that a state, say Cameroon or say Nigeria or whatever, it's the head of state or the head of government. In the Ambazonian Governing Council, the leadership, it's not the organization. There are separation of powers between the executive, the legislative, and the enforcer of those laws within the Ambazonian Governing Council. And this is what makes the Ambazonian Governing Council strong. And that because of colonialism for 60 years, people think you can use because there is somebody good in the name of Dr. Cho Ayamba or maybe Dr. Nyih or Dr. Larry or the dev chair. Why not just allow them continue? And that is how you breed dictatorship. I am delighted that you don't have that mindset in the Ambazonian Governing Council. You don't have that mindset within the leadership of the Ambazonian Governing Council. And I think I should start preparing Ambazonian minds that in the next 4 years, the charter of the Ambazonian Governing Council doesn't allow the same people to stand. So they have to go. And leadership starts by showing the example. And it will be the case that our current roles will become untenable following the charter. And the charter speaks, not the people. I hear.
Wow, that's another level. I think this is how things are supposed to be done. We see it across the globe in Western democracy where institutions and laws do matter, and this is what we expect in a free Ambazonia.
So, VP, let me follow up with this question. Is this what? So, the Governing Council of Ambazonia, obviously, from what we are building, is this what is going to be translated into the Ambazonian spirit, into the governance of Ambazonia?
Exactly, indeed, Comrade Asu. This is what is being transmitted to Ambazonians so that they become used to these fundamental principles that underpin a socio-political economic development of advanced economies that we see nowadays. Ambazonia was once an advanced economy within the context of Africa in 1950 to 1961 when the French connived with the British and took away our sovereignty. The Ambazonian Governing Council, unlike other movements in this Ambazonian War of Independence, is anchored on an ideology. And I would say, even in the entire Africa, any country that prospers is anchored on an ideology with strong institutions. And that is why the Ambazonian Governing Council finds its strength even when Cameroon, enablers and infiltrators try to bring us down and they think they are done with us. We regerminate because they are not the people regerminating. There are the institutions. And the institutions have allowed us to put in place a conveyor belt of very intelligent people with enough cranial capacity that whether it's Dr. Nyih today, Dr. Ayamba today or tomorrow, if they are not there, a new crop of people will come in and they'll be even stronger. I think there's a saying, and most people know that the people that pull the plug in the Ambazonia Governing Council is not Dr. Nyih, it's not Dr. Ayamba. I think some of them in one of the meetings, I heard a word, the Ayatollahs of A of C. that you never see them. They're in the background pulling the strings and allowing. So these are the kind of things that you want to see in the new Ambazonia. These are the kind of transparent processes underpinned by the respect of rule and law, but showing leadership and leading by example. That matters. And I think we have comported ourselves in the last 4 years. We've shown Ambazonians that we can uphold the rule of law. We've shown Ambazonians that we have put in place a charter, a manifesto for the Ambazonian state to emerge, and that the respect of that manifesto and the charter that is anchored in an ideology would build a good, a solid foundation for economic prosperity, for the respect of peace within the Gulf of Guinea, for empowering the Ambazonian people.
All right. For those who do not know Dr. Nyih's background, the Vice President of Governing Council of Ambazonia, let me just give you a little bit of a background of how fortunate we as a people we are. He's one of the world experts in human resource management. So he's a lecturer in 4 universities across the globe. He's a lecturer in a university in China. He's a lecturer in the university in Hong Kong. He's a lecturer in the university, I think it's in Malaysia, in Malaysia or Singapore, if I'm not mistaken, correct me, and also a lecturer in Singapore. Okay, so he's a lecturer in university in China. He's a lecturer in university in Hong Kong. He's a lecturer in a university in Singapore, and he's also a lecturer in a university in Ireland. So we're dealing with a brain box here. So he's a talent. He's one of the a talent and institutional development expert. So we are very fortunate to have people with such skill, knowledge, expertise, and integrity to help us to build the strong institution needed for the state. Now, let's go to the Secretary of State for the Governing Council of Ambazonia, Dr. Larry Ayamba. He's an artificial intelligence expert. I think he works in one of the top European institute there in Brussels. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to the program. Let me ask you this tough question. What is the objective of power diplomacy in Ambazonia, in the Governing Council of Ambazonia?
That is a tough one. But I think Ambazonians should give me that. Thank you so much for that question. I want to say here that end of series diplomacy is based on general objectives of diplomacy, and this has follows.
Sir, we're having a little bit of a difficulty to hear you. Maybe is it your microphone? Is it something we're getting? People are having difficulties hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
I think it's getting better, but there is still some technical challenges. But just go ahead, sir.
Yes. Okay. So, as I said, our diplomacy is based on the general objectives of international diplomacy, and they are categorized as follows. Now, I talk about recognition. The agency has been implementing its diplomacy at a point. And when I talk about diplomacy, recognition, recognition of independent states for the reason for which the Amazonian peoples are fighting. This is because the recognition of statehood and the reasons why we fight translate into key issues such as mobilization, sanctions against the oppressor, isolation of the oppressor, the legitimization of the operation, and sometimes even the legitimization of the regime within the operation state. So the second part of it, I want to say it here now, loud and clear, once and for all, that the Ambazonia struggle is an international issue because of its specific nature of the both colonization, the wrongful termination of the trust that was given the British by the United Nations. And so, specific objectives of the aid of state diplomacy bring to the attention of the international stakeholders that engage in this both decolonization process of their failed responsibility, I repeat, of their failed responsibility in properly ending the trusteeship system and to clarify why proper termination or why proper terminating the trusteeship and recognizing Ambazonia as independent state was not done. This has a lot of implications. One, the stability of the region. And for international peace and security, and most importantly, the credibility of the UN, the administrative authority that was the UK, and the international system, because the international system is respected based on credibility. Let me just end here for now because I think if I start talking about this, we'll go and go and go and go. But before I round up, let me say something. Another specific reason of the aid of this diplomacy is to keep as many friends as possible in this phase of the liberation struggle because these friends will be very, very, very relevant for post-independence and post-independence.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I think you're getting better. Your computer, your system is getting better. DDC, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to stick to get to the Vice President, Dr. Nyih, and to follow up on the conversation, this frank conversation, as the Secretary of State have started with diplomacy. The Ambazonia Governing Council is the custodian of the membership of OMPO. It's a very prestigious arsenal in our diplomatic arsenal. And I want you to tell the Ambazonian people what has OMPO brought to us so far. We understand the governing council pays some fee to this institution. It's a very prestigious institution that have assisted other people to achieve their independence. And we will want to know, Dr. Nyih, what has OMPO brought to us this far? You remember the SCNC was the custodian of that membership, and eventually they lost membership to OMPO, and the governing council was struggling to get us back as a member of OMPO, and the governing council succeeded. The whole process, if you may want to explain us, how did we succeed to be admitted in that organization, and what has that organization brought to us so far, apart from the prestige and the video, the follow-ups we see of you attending these prestigious meetings and made us to associate with other state partners. What has this institution brought to us in terms of our recognition and advancement of our cause for liberation?
Thank you, Comrade Capo Daniel. Our membership of OMPO, the Unrepresented People's Organization, Nations and People Organization, rather, it's very instrumental. It was the foundation, and it still remains the foundation upon which our diplomacy took root. Remember, targeted diplomacy is one of the three legged stool approach, or the triad approach to attain independence: self-defense, internationalization, and community mobilization as well. So with OMPO, just like any other international organization that each member state is adhered to, there are costs involved, which we absorb that. but we had to follow in the footsteps of the SCNC because with OMPO, it has opened us the doors to other partners, not only in Europe, but the US and also Asia. I think it's with the OMPO that we got hold of the Basque, and that process of even getting hold of the Basque was not without challenges, because when the Ambazonian Governing Council tried to revive membership of Ambazonia in OMPO, it was challenged by our foes or enablers within the ranks, in the likes of the IG led by pastors. They said we weren't the actual representatives, but when OMPO asked them to even show documents of their organization, of their structures, and so on, they fell short. So this comes to tell you that the wearing seem to be reputable. And this brings me to this point that we are making inroads, and what the international community is looking for people that are composed, is looking for people that can manage the affairs of a state. And that has to come through our actions, through our posture, through our outreach, and through our contacts in the international scene. It is through OMPO that we've been able to knock at international organization doors, to knock at government doors, and we are listened to. It is through OMPO that we even had capacity building. I remember the Ambazonian Governing Council with the European Institute for Peace held a capacity building workshop in 2019. That was through OMPO, and the European Union funded this. However, this was cut short because the Swiss were empowered by some of our foes that they could negotiate or they could mediate, whatever that was. And the EIP, which was funded by the European Union under pressure from France, had to withdraw that support. So it was left in the hands of the Swiss, which nonetheless faltered, because we realized from the first day that the Swiss weren't clear. They couldn't provide clarity on their role. They couldn't provide, they didn't even have the leverage or the understanding of how such a crisis could be managed. What I would also say is that through OMPO, we've been able to internationalize our war of independence. Remember, Dr. Larry Ayamba just said the Ambazonian crisis is an international one. Exactly. And once and for all, Cameroon has lost the argument that it was an internal issue. And now, through OMPO and our different diplomatic partners, which are international organizations and member states, we have been able to bring and to crystallize the quest for freedom as an international issue. So it is at the international level, and there'll be no day, if Ambazonians continue to do what matters, that Cameroon can make this issue a domestic matter again, whether from its national dialogue to its special status to its House of Chief. That is a charade that the international system has taken note. So OMPO has lots of things, both in terms of opening doors, but also in terms of building our capacity, in terms of outreach, in terms of convincing our partners to stay with us, and also in order to create friends, as Dr. Larry Ayamba said. Ambazonia doesn't only need friends at this phase of the pursuit of independence. We need friends post-independence to be able to relate and stay connected in the global space.
And I think it takes us to the mission you led, the delegation you led to the Basque country in Spain, where I was part of that meeting, and it was incredible. The people of the Basque were willing to get into friendship with our state, and even for future partnering. They are dynamic people. I think the relationship will be much better than what we see across Africa. The experience in post-colonialism and the relationship between China and Africa today that is on the spotlight. Dr. Julius Nyih, that diplomatic mission to the Basque region, which led to the monumental resolution in the Basque parliament that supported Ambazonians' quest for exercising of their right of self-determination. we knew that there were supposed to be follow-up diplomatic mission in Finland, in the States, and in many other places. And we are very happy with that big victory. Where are we today in terms of that effort and the expectation of the Ambazonian people from such diplomatic moves?
Thank you, Capo, for that. I think the Basque initiative was a watershed moment that opened the doors for us to be able to get into contact with other European states, including the United Kingdom. Just to let Ambazonians know, when the SIG was pranked in London, I was there, but nobody knew. We were there to meet with UK representatives at the House of Lords, and photos are there to be seen. So with OMPO, we were able to get through its connections to other powers. So with the international system, when you start from a weak position, you work your way up. And today we are not only talking with states that matter, we are talking at the highest level, at the UN, at the level of the UN. And I think the president of the Ambazonia Governing Council has put out a notice before that we have been communicating with them for the last 11 months today. So that is the foundation that the Basque country laid, because their tacit recognition of Ambazonian quest for independence was a light to show to other states and other international organizations that were still dragging their feet that this is a genuine cause, but also it was another PR, a win for Ambazonian, because it projected our cause, which is one of our triad approach, to the international scene. And today we are talking not only with the likes of Basque, we are still very strong with the Basque. And I think if not of COVID, we would have been there again. And they are willing to even fund humanitarian activities in Ambazonia. The Basque gave us the opportunity, and I think a few Ambazonians have availed it through the Ambazonian Governing Council to seek refuge in the Basque country. And I think we have had some successes there without naming people, you know. So it's an initiative that it's still on course. They are part of our formula or our equation to attain power diplomacy going forward. So they are critical. You always keep your good friends. Sometimes good friends don't offer you tangible rewards, but offer you priceless networks, because remember, international system works on interest, it works on alliances, it works on networks, you know. I hear.
Working on networks,
You know,
just a follow-up question, the Vice President. Working on networks from OMPO, we've seen from the photo that was shown, the Governing Council of Ambazonia through the European Peace Institute. Also, you brought together Ambazonian movements, Ambazonian leaders for that capacity building workshop, which was to lead into a team to prepare Ambazonia for an eventual negotiations with Cameroon through the European Peace Institute. What happened to that initiative?
This initiative was the light. It was sabotage by the art. It was a sabotage by the Swiss and the French, because they knew that if it was to go ahead, it was a veritable opportunity to fast track the resolution, the political resolution of the Ambazonian War of Independence. The Ambazonian leadership, that I would call that, came there. While they were there, they were meeting behind our backs with the Swiss. They were eating cheese. They were using the Mafani Musonge angle as well as the French angle in order to derail the EIP. But nonetheless, it was good. It showed how Ambazonian people can come together once in a while in order to pursue a common strategy. I'm careful to use this word, common strategy, because I think I should let Ambazonians know that To be honest, we don't
VP,
believe in
VP,
Yep.
VP, while you are talking about this, this is just a follow up. You were also, because you were in charge of that mission, you were able to bring in leaders of other movements to join the governing council of Ambazonia for the common purpose for this capacity building workshop. Is that true?
I was the sole contact with Dr. Larry Ayamba as usual. We reached out to all of them. We connected them. EIP arranged all the logistics and everything else, sponsored it, and all the leaders came together. You can see from that photo, and we came together as equal, as gentlemen and ladies, in order to chart a path forward for Ambazonia based on a strategy. What has failed so many organizations and so many people is blind followership or executing practices without a strategy and a policy underpinned by an ideology. Once you do that, you cannot put the cart in front of the horse. It's gonna fail. So once they did that in EIP and we came together, it was going to be good for Ambazonia. Nonetheless, because of the Swiss, it had to be stopped through the European Union. But we found other means in order to penetrate the system because we understand how the international system works. We found other means on how to meet with governments around the world. And we also found other means to work our way up to the highest level, which we are at the moment, working with the governments across the Atlantic Ocean as well as here in Europe, and working with international organizations, including the UN, at the highest level of the UN. So even though EIP didn't move forward, even though the collaborative platform didn't move forward because of those that were there, because of some wrangling in the other camp, we nonetheless pursued our targeted diplomacy. And I can tell you, Ambazonians, and I think the president, Dr. Ayamba, said this: we are an international contender, and nothing is going to take that away from us. Ambazonia should rest assured that we know what we are doing. Because of non-disclosure agreements, I cannot expose everything to Ambazonians. We have gone into meetings, and the letters that the IG of pastors have sent to those individuals and those organizations is telling. When the time comes, we will publish them. They say one thing in public, and they do a different thing in private. So when the time comes, when those type of documents will be declassified, that will not harm our relationship, Ambazonians will see for themselves.
All right, Doctor, before DDC Capo, before you step in, let me conclude with this question. The Vice President, give us an idea what would have happened to the capacity building leading to an effective negotiations through the European Institute. What would have happened through that process versus what the peaks try to do through the Swiss? What's the difference?
The difference is the peaks. See, to bring context before I answer the question, it would have brought us three things, but this is the context. We needed a platform in order to collaborate, or what they call unity in diversity. So EIP would have built our capacities or help us to build capacities to the level where we have a common agenda. But thank God, and I would say thank God or thank goodness, it didn't work because we're dealing with a group that is for decentralization in the likes of the IG, and we're also dealing with a group that would be satisfied with federalism in the likes of IGK, and a group with our sister organizations that were for total independence. So the choice is for Ambazonians to clearly understand why they say there is infighting. There is no infighting. It's just that different groups are pursuing different objectives. But the EIP, so with that in mind, the EIP would have been able to find a common ground through that process to bring us to a point where we could converge and agree a way forward. But also, EIP would have spearheaded and fast track the resolution of the conflict because it was going to amass its different member states and bring this issue at the United Nations. That was it. And if that had happened, we would have been somewhere better. But because Cameroon, through its machinations, because remember, Cameroon is not a cohesive. If you think Ambazonia is divided, which we are not, we are pursuing different things. Some groups are pursuing decentralization, some are pursuing federation, and nationalists are pursuing a total independence from colonialism and bad faith, maiming, killing of our people. So that is it. Cameroon in itself is so divided that you find the likes of a Koko pursuing something else, the likes of their colonial prime minister pursuing something else, and the presidency pursuing something else. So they have divergent views. They are not a coherent force. That is even one of the reasons why it's difficult to get them to come to the negotiation table. But I've always told Ambazonians, negotiation is, for us, the Ambazonian Governing Council, while we are open to negotiations, negotiation is not even our priority. Our priority is boots on the ground and beat Cameroon, because if we challenge Cameroon's invincibility with then guns, we are doing even better now with armored car busters, and we are going to smoke them out of the armored cars. Let them come down and fight. And that is what we promise Cameroon. So we are pursuing boots on the ground, total independence through power rather than negotiation, because negotiation is a waste of time.
And you know, we know the power always lies to the people, and sometimes our people, they throw their weight behind groups that they perceive as leaders in this liberation struggle. I want us to talk about some of the leaked information that came out from that European Institute of Peace about some of these characters like Bo Herbert who were there, and they were not interested in doing the hard work necessary to build that capacity building. But some of them were more interested to find out. They want to make sure that the governing council is not at the helm, and some people who were already having discussion with the Swiss were more interested in trying to puncture that initiative of the EIP. Can you people give us some light on these people who call themselves the ACT and their characters that were displayed in that EIP capacity building workshop?
Yes, indeed. The act was sponsored by, it's an initiative of the Swiss through what I normally call the Musonge axis. So Musonge contacts through the Swiss, and then the Swiss initiate a system. Remember, colonialism is also predicated on multiplication or duplication of effort in order to deviate, in order to confuse, in order to create a false sense of popularity. So when they did that, the likes of the act were there, even though they knew that this was a veritable initiative to bring Ambazonia closer to their dream of having a homeland. They were there in order to spy. They were there in order to undermine. They were there in order to make sure that the Ambazonia Governing Council doesn't become the one that would be given the accolade of bringing people together. So their idea has always been to undermine the Ambazonian Governing Council and its leadership without a substantive alternative. Their idea has been that if it's not them, it's nobody else. Whereas with the Ambazonian Governing Council, as I've said, it's not about Dr. Nyih, it's not about Dr. Cho, it's not about Dr. Ayamba, it's not about the PS, it's not about Capo. It's about the institutions and a conveyor belt of leaders that can use the same institutions to achieve the same goal. But these guys came in under the pretext they want to work with us, but they were there to spy, to undermine, to confuse, to create duplication, and then go and say, oh, we are doing it, And then we read from that day and from our interactions with the Swiss. We met even at the highest level of the Swiss Foreign Affairs Department, why these guys met with the HD. And we told them point blank and gave them 3 conditions that if they met those conditions, those were the minimum international standards required for some organization or somebody to say they want to mediate or facilitate. And they couldn't meet even one of those 3 conditions. We made an informed judgment based on experience, based on other conflicts, based on advice from our contacts through OMPO and the Basque, that the Swiss initiative was going nowhere. And we've been proven right more than 12 months ago that they weren't going anywhere. So you find this force because of social media. People become popular. Popularity doesn't win you votes. And I think social media showed us through the US elections in 2016 how popularity in leadership can lead to disaster. And it has also shown us in the Ambazonian War of Independence, where blind followership and popularity can lead to death on the ground, it can lead to sabotage, it can lead to maiming of our civilians and putting the lives of our civilians in danger. And I think Ambazonians should wake up and understand that popularity doesn't win war. Guns and bullets win wars.
There have been the Coalition for Negotiation and Dialogue, which are not nationalist movement, but they are NGOs who have emerged, and they have been very active in the diplomatic war to engage the international community with the hope of trying to facilitate some type of formation of our leader, the major factions and some other factions to come together in the negotiation table. The Ambazonian Governing Council, I think, was invited in one of their fora. We want to know where has that leads to with people like Dr. Fomonyang. Can you speak to us a little bit and give us the dynamic that exists between the Governing Council and the Coalition for Negotiation and Dialogue, and their place as you consider your diplomatic moves?
Thank you so much for that insightful question, Capo. The CDN, the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, they are doing good in terms of internationalization and community mobilization. They are trying to open some doors in order for Ambazonians' plight to be heard at the highest level of the international system. Most of the things they are doing, we've already done that, and we've met people at the highest level. Nonetheless, we still make submissions, we collaborate with the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, but we've made it clear to them that in as much as you are trying to be an NGO or you are trying to help to facilitate dialogue, a victim cannot be a facilitator or a mediator in a conflict, and that they should be able to take a stand. They're either for Ambazonia or against Ambazonia, because one of their principles is that they want to hear all voices. It's good as long as those voices are to free Ambazonia from Cameroon's illegal occupation, from the killing of our people for the last 60 years, for the disappearance of mothers and children and girls and boys in Ambazonia, for economic deprivation, and for forcefully holding on stolen property, which is Ambazonian land. So the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, they are doing the right thing in the right direction, but it rests to be clear what is their ideology, what is their strategy. I've asked them this so many times. Nonetheless, they're doing a good job in terms of internationalization and community mobilization. They are just one of the many organizations that are doing things, but they need a clear strategy.
Okay, needing a clear strategy.
A party to the conflict cannot mediate or facilitate the conflict. It's just unthinkable. And it's only a matter of time before we come back to this again. Thanks a lot.
Right. And so, as you've said, but when they had one of their conferences, you and the leadership of Governing Council of Ambazonia were equally invited. The president of Governing Council of Ambazonia, the leader of our War of Independence, Dr. Cho, spoke at that conference. After that conference, there was a working committee between the Governing Council of Ambazonia and CDN that was formed. You led that team. I think you and the vice president, you led that team. Can you give Ambazonian people an understanding? If you said you don't understand what their strategy is or what their strategy was, why did you decide to have a working team? Why did you decide to form a working team? And in that working team, can you tell us where are you in your relationship with them in terms of working for a common strategy, working for exchange of resources, working for collaboration for Ambazonia? Where are we?
We are working with them. It's good as the leading movement for the liberation of Ambazonia. You don't have to neglect any angle. So we work with everybody, try to bring everybody on board. That's why I said there will be no unity, but there will be alignment under the strategy to liberate Ambazonia. We went there, the president went there, we've been communicating with them to make sure that the voice of Ambazonians are heard and heard rightly, so that there is good representation when they knock international doors, when they try to push their own agenda, but also that they understand from where we are coming from, nationalists, in that. We make submissions to them. It's just so that the issues of 1960, 1961, where the commission of the UK commissioner for West Cameroon misrepresented facts at the United Nations, saying that Ambazonia wasn't ready, we were not economically viable to be a state. So we will negotiate, we will rather collaborate with all organizations to make sure that the facts are well presented, to make sure that position papers are well represented, and that the majority view of Ambazonian issues are taken into consideration by whosoever decides to help. And we are ready to work with any organization.
Regarding the United Nations Program for Development, they have announced some sort of recovery program to sponsor some projects in Ambazonia and in the wider Cameroons, the French Cameroon, right up to their areas where they are fighting against Boko Haram. And this program is in partnership with the occupier, La République du Cameroon. And the governing council have engaged in communication and in working groups to find out how they can facilitate or maybe partner in these programs of recovery that La République du Cameroon is calling a reconstruction. We have heard that the Japanese have invested over $1 million US, the Canadians, and a lot of people have put in money, and we are seeing some construction going down in Ground Zero in Bamenda, and we know this money is not coming from the coffers of La République du Cameroon. What is the stand of the governing council, given that the leader of our liberation had very strong words regarding this United Nations development program? What is the stance of the governing council vis-a-vis the UNDP?
The Ambazonia Governing Council has had discussions for maybe 8 months now with the United Nations Development Program to see how, according to them, facilitate reconstruction. So we've objected to reconstruction. We have asked them to design programs that it can help, because international organizations also go down to conflict area in order to alleviate the suffering of the people. We've asked them to design programs that can empower Ambazonians rather than give them free gifts like mattress, food, that Ambazonians are not hungry. We have fertile land, and for 4 years, there's been no hunger, and that they should design programs to empower Ambazonia, but that their collaboration with Cameroon is an enabling instrument for continuous colonization. But also remember, Comrade Capo, Ambazonians, and our viewers, that Cameroon is a state that can never undertake successfully a major project. So that is a window dressing to get funds to channel it for its war on Ambazonia. But I have bad news for Cameroon and UNDP. And I think we said that in their letters that we will stop any UNDP program in our controlled areas that do not have authorization or that do not have any confirming statement from the Ambazonia Governing Council and the Ambazonian Defense Forces. And I think UNDP understands this. We are still exploring ways by which an effective program that doesn't enable continuous colonialism and killing of Ambazonian takes place in Ambazonian territory, and that Cameroon cannot be party to any of these projects taking place in our controlled areas.
Yeah, we have been granting safe passages to humanitarian actors on the ground. They give the Red Cross, the World Food Program, and many organizations, even Médecins Sans Frontières, who have been operating on our territory. We have the Governing Council and the Ambazonia Defense Forces have been granting them access to our refugee population and our alien population to alleviate the humanitarian crisis. I want to ask you, are you concerned that the international community are not picking up the fact that the colonial governor, Lele Afrique, has banned and suspended indefinitely the activity of Médecins Sans Frontières that have been operating in Bamenda, providing essential healthcare service to our population, especially during this period of COVID-19? What is the Ambazonia Governing Council doing to alleviate this, to elevate this issue to the international community, to see the behavior, irresponsible behavior of Cameroon in our territory, to suspend such essential medical services that our people have heavily been relying on in Bamenda and in the entire Savannah states?
Cameroon is a rogue state. Cameroon is a failing state. Cameroon's ban of Médecins Sans Frontières has been highlighted to human rights. We've done that officially to Human Rights Watch, to other international organizations, that it violates the minimum conduct of war, that you find that during war and even in peacetime, these humanitarian organizations offer their services to the most need within society, and that Cameroon's blatant ban on Médecins Sans Frontières, it's a tool to allow Ambazonian people suffer, to allow Ambazonian people die of disease that can be curable, to allow Ambazonian people to continue in pain so that they can kill them indirectly. So realize Cameroon doesn't only kill Ambazonians with guns and bullets. Cameroon, through indirect means, it suffocates Ambazonians on a daily basis. And this is just one of the two. But we've highlighted that to our international partners. I think international NGOs have also written reports. The US diplomatic team, the recent report highlighted that fact, that medical supplies are not reaching the most need. And I think the onus is on Cameroon to behave responsibly. But Cameroon is not going to do that. So we have also used our community organizations in order to provide first aid to the people in our liberated areas. In areas that are still contentious, it's difficult to do it there, but with time, I think the Ambazonian Governing Council, the ADF, and our organizations on the ground, humanitarian organizations on the ground, are able to provide local pharmacies, local chemists, in order to take care of the basic health needs of our population.
And with that, Dr. Nyih, before let me just ask you this question. Any of you, even Dr. Larry, can answer it. Are we moving from targeted diplomacy to power diplomacy? Was it a few days ago you made a statement in which you talked about power diplomacy? Help us. Is it a change in strategy here? Is the AGOVC changing its strategy based on the current posture based on the current level of the deployment of a new force on the ground? Is there a change between targeted diplomacy, which it's been the one of the core key strategy of AGOVC in terms of the triad approach? Are we moving from the targeted diplomacy to a new strategy called power diplomacy? Can you help us to understand the difference?
E- e- Exactly. We are not moving away from targeted diplomacy. So targeted diplomacy is still there, but at the forefront is power diplomacy. Power diplomacy has two components: to increase the firepower and the manpower on ground zero, because that is what gives us the leverage to be able to talk forcefully, to be able to push our agenda in the international scene. Remember, without the ADF, this revolution would have ended like that of the Tamil Tigers, like that in so many places. So it is you, Ambazonians, your contributions that has enabled the ADF to sustain. And I think I'll make a revelation here. I was in Bahrain in early 2018 to negotiate a power deal. And I was told Ambazonia would have to give up their natural resources for 50 years for a 30% cut. So the idea, this is something that people don't know. So the idea that Dr. Cho went to London to sell oil, if we wanted to sell the oil, we would have sold it since. Let it be clear, in order to fight the war. But it wasn't in the best interest. And through our international advice from the firms that we have working with us, it was not necessary and not optimal to pursue that route. So the second issue of power diplomacy, it comes to this idea of looking, and which we already have headlines, partners that would collaborate with us to increase our power, not only within diplomatic realm, but also in self-defense. And this is an active approach that is at the forefront of our diplomacy from 2021 onwards. So there is targeted diplomacy, there is power diplomacy, increase the boots and the manpower and the firepower on the ground, but also look for partners without compromising the ability of Ambazonia to develop post-independence, so that we can increase the power on the ground and increase the power at the international scene. These are the two issues involved in power diplomacy.
There have been
And to
a massive there has been a massive change in terms of the international system responding to what Cameroon is doing on the Ambazonian people in terms of massacres. There is a lot of talks in the UK House of Commons. There are talks in the German Parliament. There are talks in the French Parliament. There is the U.S. Senate resolution. There are talks in the Oxford University. Recently, just last month, or I think in February, the Canadian House of Commons passed a breakthrough resolution. Tell me, how has the AGOVC diplomatic team have been able to use all these events to form a team of international partners to give Ambazonia the backing it needs, as you call it, to gain that power diplomacy?
You want me to take that question?
Please.
Yeah, you've been. We think you should take that question.
Okay, okay, let me take that one. Um, Listen, all these successes, all these statements have been very well followed up. And I can tell you, and I can tell the Amazonian people from my office that we follow them, all these issues. And that is why there has been a lot of pressure on the regime. And one of the things I have realized, let me take us a little back and make the point. One of the things I've realized in engaging in the peace process, I came to understand the weakness of the international system and why sometimes struggles to get on because of the international system make wrong assumptions about who the people are, how determined they are. They throw anything on them, hoping that they are so desperate to catch it. But the Ambazonian people, through the aid of seeing uh, Foreign Affairs Department, have been able to go through this engagement to educate the international system what they can do. We have talked to all those organizations and persons you have just mentioned. I want you all to also know that Egg of Sea and the Amazonian diplomacy under my leadership is engaged in the international system at every level. That's the point, at every level.
All right, doctor, because your microphone is not your our people can hear you clearly. This is a very important question. Your microphone is a little bit poor, so people cannot hear you, and it's affecting the our viewers. Dr. Nyih, can you help in a little bit so that our people can get a clear understanding of what is going on? This is so important. Thank you, doctor.
The recent advances at the international level, one is because they have realized that Cameroon is unwilling to solve the crisis. Two, Cameroon is a failing state. Three, the strides that we've made at the international system. When I say we, I mean Amazonia. Nonetheless, the Amazonian Governing Council has done all the work. The likes of CDN, the likes of the Cambridge University research, the likes of Congresswoman Karen Bass that we are in contact with, so many, even the German parliament, and the likes of the House of Lords. I was there. We have our contact there. There are about 3 contacts that we have there. So all of this, what do you see today from the international system is the result of months of interactions with the international system. Remember, the president of the Ambazonia Governing Council said about 14 months ago that we had achieved diplomatic contenderhood. And this is the manifestation of that diplomatic contenderhood. And that all of these parliaments, I think you would have seen most of our correspondences that when we write to these countries like Canada, when I wrote to them, it was published. Those letters were published. It's also a challenge that I'm sending out to other movements in this war of independence, that when you do diplomacy, please publish your correspondences, because we have realized that some of the things that you say in public are not the things that you do in the background, because we have knocked at certain doors, or we have been somewhere, and then 2 months down the road, we get a reply and of what a different movement has written to the same organization or the same contact. It is the case that we have met over a long time to discuss what is needed to withhold investment by countries and organizations internationally going to Cameroon, to also make sure that they put pressure on Cameroon's government, the autocratic government in Cameroon that is falling apart, to understand that this issue between Ambazonia and Cameroon is not a domestic issue. So the US statement, the Canadian statement, the statements from other parliaments is a manifestation and a signal to Cameroon that it's over. The game is over. And remember that diplomacy works very slowly at glacial pace, please. So our people should be hopeful that we are doing the right thing. This breed of Ambazonians, the no blinking generation, we understand the international system. We have read, we know how it works, and we know where to touch it. Remember when we went to the Basque, people were saying the Basque is a low state country, they can't do anything. But the contacts and the signal that the Basque gave provided hope and a platform for other countries to align. And I can also tell Ambazonians that we hope for two guarantors whenever there are negotiations, even though our sole objective is not about negotiation, it's about the war. Because we came to this war, we had prepared for 40 years of non-stop war with Cameroon before we can start thinking of what to do. That we've got it in a guarantor state. There's no point naming it now. And we would look for a second guarantor, which the process is ongoing. So that in itself gives Ambazonian the leverage. And this guarantor is also helping the Ambazonian Governing Council and Ambazonian people to push diplomatic backdoors. We hope to get the second guarantor by this year end. But we know through our first guarantor, a second guarantor is very easy, because through Basque, we're able to move to the powers that matter. Through EIP, through OMPO, we're able to move to the powers that matter, both in Europe, in the US, and back in Asia. And that's some of the things that took me to Bahrain, and Canada in itself. And some of these diplomatic travels are never revealed,
I want to follow up on, as we are running down the clock, with the Secretary of State, Dr. Larry. We had La République du Cameroon organizes the African Championship in Victoria City, and that has been factored in the international system calculation in the assessment of where we are in terms of military victory. We now know that the Cameroon government intend to use Victoria again in organizing African Cup of Nations. In the last African Championship, we saw the later Usain that was it had very strong impact on those participating countries. And to avoid the loss of human life, because the last thing we want is that foreign countries should come to play football, which is a beautiful sport, in the great city of Victoria, and they get caught in our battle with the armed forces from La République du Cameroon, as this is an ongoing war. So from now up to January, what do we expect to see? Are we going to see the same thing that on the last minute or the last few weeks before this cup is going to take place, then your office is going to intervene, or we will expect to see something different, much more forceful, to make sure that the international community do not allow La République du Cameroon to use our territory during an ongoing war to organize such prestigious football competition? I think we are having some technical difficulties with your microphone. We cannot hear you. You might want to try to disconnect it again and see if we can manage the one in your laptop. That will probably be better. It was much better. So I was talking to Dr. Ayamba while we sort out the technical difficulties, and let me just transfer it to Dr. Julius, Nyih, the Vice President. In terms of our organization and targeted communication to send a signal to the African football body not to allow La République du Cameroon to use an active war terrain to organize this football competition, what are our diplomats doing? Are you guys sending the right signal, or we are going to wait on the last minute again and to find that communication are coming so late? Now up to January, what are the plans of the Governing Council vis-a-vis the African Cups of Nations?
The Ambazonia Governing Council is engaging, but remember, sport has always been paraded, and rightfully so, as a non-political event. And you find sport even going to dictatorial regimes to be hosted in countries that have undemocratic presidents and heads of governments. It's the case with Cameroon. That's their argument. But we are working. However, there is one thing to stop the Nations Cup or whatever Cameroon is organizing in its country and then transferring some of it to Victoria. Ambazonians, arm ground zero. End of story. Arm ground zero. I know there are people, tribalists, that said people cannot fight in their state or in their districts, but that is nonsense, because the same districts that they said people could not fight there, it was a way to weaken that district so that decentralization can take place, so that the agreement with the Swiss cheese and Cameroon and the Musonge axis can take place. And I think it's clear for Ambazonians to see now that you don't follow blindly. The illiterates of the 21st century are not going to be those who cannot read and write. They are those who cannot learn, unlearn what is not good, and relearn again. They are those that are unable to separate the chaff from the real food. So, Ambazonians, there is no magic wand to stop the Nations Cup. We are working in the background with our partners to see how that can be done. But there is one simple way that we can do it. The Cameroon army, when they hear the Akamansus coming, they move out of the way, as in running away. So empower another brigade of the Akamansus to be established in the southern region. Once that is done in one of the southern states, once that is done, there will be no football going on. And I think the Ambazonian War Council, it's strategizing in that regard. And we Ambazonians have now known why the tribalists within our revolution were saying fighters could not fight in one state or the other, that they were simply implementing what the Swiss told them. Because one of the things the Swiss told them was, if you want to tell us that you are the government, make sure that you control the ground. So in order to control the ground, they will keep fighters. They will ban the ADF. When the actual ban will come into force, nobody will tell them. So Ambazonians, empower the Akamansus, establish another Akamansus. There's still enough time. We are working in the diplomatic sphere, but that is to give us a leverage that whatever we do on the ground, which adheres to the Geneva Convention, is not criticized or looked at in a negative way in the international scene. But the ultimate power is to put more boots on the ground. It's to provide the boys and girls on the ground the resources to defend themselves and defend our territorial space in the Atlantic states, so that no football takes place. And I can assure you that the Ambazonian people will heed to the call to fund the Akamansus. They will heed to the call to establish an Akamansus, at least 1 or 2 units of that elite force within the southern states, in order to protect women and children, in order to make sure that Cameroon doesn't trespasses, doesn't move beyond the Mongo, in order to host a charade. But whatever charade they host in Ambazonian soil will end in defeat for them. That's a fact. Whether it's football or war, that is clear. And any next episode, any next event wouldn't be different from what happened to them in Victoria. I hear.
On the ground, in ground zero, I think I want you to. We have today before our people great sons of Manu, the Secretary of State, who is hailed from Manu in Omoyo Jok's district, and the district of Fontem in Lebialem, the great state of Lebialem. These are very powerful states in the Savannah, the Atlantic states. And what do you have to say to some of our people as we see the Republic of Cameroon trying to elevate agents provocateurs like Moja Moja, and you find people that should be gentlemen like the colonial prime minister elevating these people who blatantly violate even the constitutional republic, to put hate speech about Ambazonians who come from the Savannah states and are making a living and helping the community in the Atlantic states. Sons of the Atlantic states like you, what do you have to say to our people that continue to entertain this agent provocateur moja moja? And even some of their friends who are in the diaspora still spilling such hate speech on a daily basis.
During the Algerian Revolution, there were more infiltrators, there were more traitors, more enablers than revolutionaries. But in the end, the revolutionaries won. It's going to be the same case in Ambazonia. Anybody enabling, either by commission or omission, facilitating colonialism, the killing of our people by Yaoundé, would be held accountable. There will be no reconciliation in Ambazonia. There will be justice. So whether it's Moja Moja or what, tribalism has no place in Ambazonia. The Ambazonia Governing Council and sister organizations, nationalist organizations, have people from all the 13 states of Ambazonia working at the highest level. So whether you are in the diaspora or ground zero, facilitating harm on our people, killing, maiming, colonialism, illegal occupation, your day in front of the court of law is not too far. We will seek justice and justice will be served. Maybe Dr. Larry has something and he can come in.
And I want Dr. Larry to speak from the position as a royalist, because he's a prince in the district of Omoyo Job, from Umko village, the people of Ekoma. I think if I'm not wrong, they will be listening. And please speak from that voice. We want to hear you talk as a prince from our land. You know, we are people who love our tradition and we respect you a lot. Go ahead, sir.
I wish this time you can hear me, but Capo, you have to know how to say Onaku, Onaku. Okay, so let me just go to the point. I'm a person of very few words. I want to tell Ambazonians that the time has come when we can't take it no more. When you sell out your people for the favor of the enemy, you have got to pay in one way or the other, or in any way, shape, or form.
And the people, you see, we have seen they are fast tracking the transfer of land property, especially in the great state of down there in Victoria. We are seeing even there have been an emergence of a village of the Bulu tribe. Can you imagine in the great state of Mamfe? And our lands are being sold systematically. Our people are being there. I think La Republic is already preparing the ground for post-Ambazonian independence, to make sure that they own land property and they will use it as bargaining chips. What will you communicate to our people to understand the importance not to sell land or to allow impostors to come in the name of local chief and sell land to French Cameroon political agents who are trying to buy chips in the future negotiation with our people?
The people who are engaged in those processes, we know perfectly well. And there's just no two way about it. They will have to pay in one way or the other. They will pay for it, and all the land will be taken back either by hook or by crook. Our land is not for sale. People who come and colonize us and grab our territory. Is it not the same thing like what happened in the Southern Africa? We will get them, we will get it back. The time will come, all of them, we will call La Republic to pack it back and baggage and leave our territory, and they are not going to take our land with it.
So, as we round up the program, I don't know if Mr. You want to get some follow up. Otherwise, move around and
Yeah.
I'll come down for talk for them. as what people that
For
would
sure.
listen to.
I know that the vice president has I think a meeting that is already going on. Let me ask you this, VP. How can you assess our strength on the ground? They assess our strength diplomatically in terms of the response of the international system. Recently, just last week, La République du Cameroon, there are signs that the Cameroon colonial government is about to carry out another manipulative action called the Grand National Reconciliation Conference. It's not the Grand Dialogue anymore. It's now a National Reconciliatory Conference. There are actions being carried out on the ground. Agbabala, whom we all know, is now leading that effort to prepare the ground for a National Reconciliation Conference. What is your view? What is the AGOFC doing about it? What are the forces doing about it? How are we going to educate the international system? Because this is coming just a month after the Canadian resolution, which is mobilizing the international community to respond to Cameroon to send an international team of investigators on the ground to investigate its crime and also investigate the root causes of the conflict.
Thank you for that. Our position now on the ground in the international scene is very strong. On the ground, we've been able to start stabilizing some areas where the SDF with the IGK, with the AMF, with whatever, all of those splinter groups had destabilized, but also to stabilize areas where we have driven Cameroon out. Remember, Cameroon administration does not take place anymore in Ambazonia. There is no Cameroon administration because one of our strategies was to make the land ungovernable. Because the land is ungovernable, rogues and Cameroon agents themselves, including other impostors that thought that they could use the Ambazonian War of Independence to have a name or to make a life out of it, came in to destabilize, to steal, to maim, to kill, but also that the Swiss art group wanted to show that they were in control when they didn't master self-defense. They had come in and created division on the ground, killing of people. But we have used our strategy in self-defense, our ADF, using the code of conduct, training, and a good supply of material in order to start stabilizing the ground. There are areas that we've heard for 2 years going that Cameroon cannot come round there. When Cameroon now knows that we have POPs that can take them out of armored cars, Cameroon is going ahead to organize a charade. Cameroon should know there will be no reconciliation in Ambazonia. There will be justice. Cameroon can organize any grand national whatever, even the national decommissioning. Cameroon has organized as many things as you and I know, or as many events, or as many dialogues, as many units, institutions, but that is not what matters. What matters is for Cameroon to leave Ambazonia, and that the War of Independence is an international issue, and Cameroon cannot more pretend that they don't know. They've been told that from the highest level that is an international issue. So Cameroon can go ahead and organize its monologue again, its charade, reconcile with its political parties in Cameroon, but that's none of our business. It doesn't concern Ambazonia. We will continue fighting. We will continue to observe Ghost Town, and I appreciate the people on Ground Zero for that. We'll continue to resist illegal occupation. We'll continue to arm our boys and girls. We'll continue to pop them out of armored cars. We will bring them to fight on the ground. They declare war on us, and we will defend ourselves to the last man standing. The diaspora will never leave Ground Zero alone. We will supply them with what it needs until Boya comes. And Ambazonia should understand that, as Dr. Cho Ayamba said, this is not a walk in the park. This is going to take sacrifice. It's going to be tough. There will be some days that we will cry. There will be some days that we will laugh. But ultimately, we will win as we are winning, because Cameroon is now engaging in paying fighters not to fight them. What Cameroon is doing is the same thing France did in Afghanistan to pay the Taliban, not to kill French. But once that money got dry, Taliban started killing the French.
Power on.
Bluetooth
pairing.
Understand that the
Bluetooth
US
connected.
has fought the Taliban for 20 years, and Taliban won the US, and they had to leave Afghanistan. It's going to be the same with Ambazonia. Time is with us. We will fight them for 1,000,000 years.
All right, sir. We got a question for you. Hang on there. There is an important question for you from the President of Governing Council of Ambazonia to the Vice President.
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You've got a question for the Vice President of Governing Council of Ambazonia. The President of Governing Council of Ambazonia wants to ask the Vice President of Governing Council of Ambazonia a question on a national live TV show. Go ahead, Mr. President.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Mr. Yes. And congrats to the VP and the Secretary of State for a wonderful outing. There are a couple of people in the Atlantic states who spew a lot of hate and tribalism. I know they are not representative of the majority of the people in the Atlantic state who have shown hospitality. We have in Lebialem, where the Vice President comes from. And the Vice President is a highly educated person, the Vice President of the Ambazonian Governing Council, within which you have the National Security Advisor from the Atlantic, the PS from the Atlantic, the Secretary of State from the Atlantic, the Chairman of the National Council from the Atlantic. Highly educated, highly resourceful, and dedicated patriots for our liberation. The question I have for the Vice President is, when he hears these individuals from the Atlantic spew this hate to divide our people, do they speak for the people of the Atlantic states?
Thank you, Mr. President, for that question. And I think it's timely. I had addressed it before, but that was to deal with Lebialem, and also to note to people from the Atlantic states, the Akamansus and the ADF are now in 2 districts of Lebialem state, Alo and Wabane. And last week, they make an incursion into Alo market itself. We are moving down to Menji Central, which is the last district within Lebialem. Those spewing hate are a minority. And remember, just like the advent of social media giving voice to the unknown, that is how they are using social media to spew hate. Majority of the citizens, whether on ground zero or abroad from the Atlantic states, they do not buy their agenda. They do not buy their pomposity. They do not buy their hate and divide. And most of these, if you look at them without calling names, all of them have the Musonge, have the Prime Minister's connection. It's what I call the Musonge axis. They are infiltrators. They are kept there. And from the wars of independence, we've known that the colonial state always recruits from within us in order to weaken us. And it is the case that all of this, from Moja to these pastors in abroad, to those supporting them, they are paid agents, some of them knowingly and others unknowingly. And that there is this idea of tribalism that has been inculcated into mostly Southwesterners, as you would call them, or those from the Southern Zone, by the colonial regime, to divide us, because the colonial regime knows that once we have a common stance, never mind being united, we will defeat them. They have recruited the weak-minded those that were last in class, and those that can easily be bribed. I think Dr. Larry said here how the dad couldn't be bribed, or how they came to him and wanted to bribe him, and he couldn't take that. Let the Ambazonian people know that the Ambazonian Governing Council has one of the strongest representation from majority of representation at the highest level of the Ambazonia Governing Council are members from the Atlantic states. And these are people that cannot be intimidated. These are people that cannot be bribed. These are people that cannot work for the colonial regime. And that those that are spewing hate, a divide, a tribalism, they are simply doing the work of the enemy, and that it's only a matter of time before they'll be brought to justice. I hear.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your for that question to the Vice President. Mr. Vice President, thanks for answering the question from the President.
Thanks a lot. I think that was a great interjection from the President.
Do you have any? You want to start to round this up? The Vice President has to.
I think say I want to make una continue to talk as we would listen for now, and our people them across our national territory, from Boya to Bamenda, from Ngokitunja to Fontem, they will close all their shop them tomorrow in our country Sunday for sacrifice, for demonstrate civilly, for show the international community say the one separation. Leha de bidan talking for Cardinal Tumi he survey say more than out of 1,000 people, now only 4 people will be talking to the one stay with the Republic. As our people that they go through this burden for this liberation struggle, I want me gonna talk directly for them, for encourage our mommy them, our papa them, and all my way there for ground zero, where they hold this button, say they no fit accept for live in servitude with this foreign government, where they come for our house them, burn house them, kill picking them, rape women them, use rape as a tool of war. They try to encourage people the way they be go, where they take last for class, like a Patrick Ekema, like Moja, like Franklin Jume. They look the worst amongst us for promote them in order for spoil our culture, make them get a low sense of esteem, and them accept for begin stay with them like slave. I want me to talk address for them, and I also want me to talk for our people. I don't see our woman the way they for inside Tico, where they work like house girl them, house boy them, for francophone the way they come up for La Republic, where they don't get no education. But these people then get experience for work for CDC farm, but now they don't turn we like slave. It did the same way to be seen for inside South Africa. I beg me wanna talk for our people then directly for address them as we enter inside the Monday when a day for resistance for our people then for ground zero.
Do you want to go first, Doc?
Fellow Ambazonians, I would like to.
But DDC, you not even talk. You not even talk. Whether you want me to talk now for PJ, you want me to talk for me to continue to talk for Igbo language. You know, even though you talk.
No, they need to talk. You know, the thing is, for a long time, our people they don't always favor a foreign language because this English we are not. We say we are not Anglophone. We don't talk so we not be an Anglophone them. We be a people of a land of a national identity. Even though we don't learn English from one man country, we don't adopt them for our environment. The vast majority of our people then deserve for here for una they represent their interests. So una fit also talk for them for language so they fit understand them. We know one country where politicians will come out for town, can't take position there for village, where they don't even know what it happen for village. Or people then they were diaspora, they don't even be connected with what it happen for ground. They just want to talk on behalf of the people then. So I want to talk for our people then for the people's language. So that me then hear what when I talk. We'll start with our prince when I'm picking for palace. Me talk Mr. Dr. Ayamba. Me first talk and then we'll go for Fontem. We here for our vice president to me talk for now. And if they choose for talk now for British people, their language will not say them to them be assimilated, but we'll take them as it comes. So go ahead, Prince. Prince Ayamba, go ahead.
I will try.
Capo, you sabi tie rope for people that food them, eh?
Happy Mr. No Connie.
That's asking.
It not be easy because people not be easy too. But I want to talk to my people say, I go like more when I know say we feel una pains. We know what road that they go through. All our people will know what road that they go through. And I want to make the men understand say Ambazonians they don't commit to the international system, say they be ready to sit on the negotiation table. Will be ready at any time to start that negotiation, and that negotiation where it will kick La République out of our land. La République du Cameroon, they don't deny. They sit for table for talk at the international scene. They don't choose for fight war over for cash, don't talk. Cameroon don't choose for kill our people for cash, don't talk. Cameroon don't choose for commit genocide instead of for cash, don't talk. Cameroon don't choose for torture our people instead of for cash, don't talk. They don't choose for bomb our villages, kill our people rather than for cash, don't talk. But the time where they will struggle for talk, at that very day, we will leave Ambaland. And the reason that way, me like diplomat, not to resist and defeat these people for battlefield, weaken them until they will crawl with their feet. They can't start begging for forgiveness. And then I will give them the timetable for withdraw from our country. And after that time, I will present that timetable for the president may approve it. Now the public not to survive for occupy Ambazonia. Make we not forget. La Republic not to survive for occupy Ambazonia. I want to tell una say that matter don't finish. It's over. If they let the kill all we, but grass go germinate, grass soil go germinate against La Republic. I will make sure that the international community understand the speed where they support for recognize Ambazonia as an independent country, and how that one they go build up our people and other neighboring countries so that we can give one last thing, even though the pigeon the drum, one last thing. For the liberation war like the Ambazonian War of Independence, any negotiation must be backed by credible force. What does that one mean? It means as for the way make Cameroon commit, GP we don't already talk. We must increase our power by arming all Ambazonian Defense Forces, including their commandos, and let them they will deliver our homeland and the power to negotiate with power. Because negotiation, you go to the negotiation table and you negotiate from the position of strength.
Yes.
VP, you don't.
Yeah, before
VP,
Prince one talk, I want me all man member for Instagram zero say now Doctor this Prince Ayamba one the same so time where the Bulu Beti people the way they punish our people they treat you anyhow. they become for inside Belgium, for they become use for place for challenge we and for humiliate we. Now he be turn up for talk on our behalf. It point hands for that that their minister Somo and Betty where they call their name. So it point hand. Yeah. Yes, now it be stand it point hand. So that me then see that one a pain way all we don't suffer for all this year the whole republic. And we'll be very happy say it is stand for that place. It probably don't stand for continue the good job, for continue for do and we will hear also for the vice president for the governing council. Me also talk for our people them. Me then too sabi say you soon a man way come up for day. It talk they talk we talk me then hear fine for you. Mr. Vice President, I beg talk for our people.
Thank you so much, Capo. So I'll try to speak in Pidgin. I'll try to talk. I'll try to talk for Pidgin. But if I change to English without knowing, no problem. So while Papa Amami them for Ground Zero, we thank una so much for the hard work that way una do. You una di respect a country Sunday every Monday. That is a clear sign to La Republique to show that you are not accepting what they are doing to you. For sure, say you now be willing for stand for your own freedom. We appreciate all our people them from all the southern states, the Atlantic states, the Savannah state, the northern states for Ambazonia. Say, make una stand firm. There is nothing Cameroon can do. You have shown Cameroon over the last 4 years that Cameroon cannot shake your belief in freedom and to own the land that God gave to you. I'm also thanking our forces and sister forces on the ground. I'm thanking the Akamansus. You have shown Cameroon who owns the land. You have shown Cameroon who controls the land. Cameroon is, before Cameroon declared this war, they knew they were going to get a walkover in 3 weeks. But 3 years, 4 years, and counting, Cameroon is begging to come out. Cameroon is begging that return to normal, as they call it, can take place. But I trust in you guys, trust in us. We also assure you that we would stand with you until we reach Boya, and that Ambazonians in the diaspora and Ground Zero are united. We now know those that were helping to kill our people. There were people that had come to an understanding with Cameroon in order to sell us, in order to go back to decentralization, in order to fill their stomach, in order to stay in Yaoundé. We will continuously chase them out of our land. And when independence comes, we will bring them to face the music of justice. And that whether you are helping Cameroon knowingly or unknowingly, your days are numbered in Ambazonia. But also that your pain will go away. Nothing good comes easy, Ambazonians. You know that. And that we are on the right track. Believe in the Ambazonian Governing Council, believe in the strategy laid out and expanded upon by the leader of our War of Independence, Dr. Ayamba. Believe in us, your leaders, but also know that there are some people working in the ground. While we take the accolade here that we are leading, the unsung heroes are the 194 staff members that are working around the clock, including all the uncountable donations from Ambazonians across the globe that have allowed us to move this revolution forward. When they caught our comrades, the Sisiko Ayub Tabi and the rest, they thought that the revolution, they thought that the War of Independence, they thought that our resistance was going to end. But unknowingly, they did not look at the ADF as that organization that was going to uplift your spirit. We have uplifted your spirit. We will continuously do so. We are here for you. We will never blink. And we ask you to remain committed to the cause. Victory is ours to take. Victory is ours to pursue. Thank you so much, Ambazonians.
All right, our fellow Ambazonians, we want to thank all man. We don't take the time for joining with today. We want to thank the Vice President for Governing Council of Ambazonia. Today, when I don't hear Vice President, I don't talk small pidgin. All right. When I don't also hear the Secretary of State for Governing Council of Ambazonia, these two people for our front, these were two leaders then. Now them they lead the diplomatic effort for the Ambazonia War of Independence, for make sure say Ambazonia be represented for the international community for the best way possible, and for make sure say the thing the way where people don't rise up and they fight for and they ask for and they die for, the Ambazonia people will achieve recognition and they will achieve a free homeland. So, Mr. Vice President and the Secretary of State, we thank you plenty for one time when I don't take for joining me today on this one new program where they call and say the interview. For this program, we don't ask you tough questions. Even when the president says the leader for war, he said don't call, ask you a question. So thank you plenty. We know say we're not already late for another meeting. We also get in for join them. We're not already be late. One thank on behalf of the Ambazonian people. One thank on behalf of all who meet them for ground zero, all who papa them, all who picking them, all the refugees, all Ambazonians, especially our defense forces, for the work we want to do on behalf of the Ambazonian people for give we a free homeland. We thank you for our services, for the leadership we want to provide them, and for the kind character and the nation and the institution we want to build for on behalf of the Ambazonian people. Them, we thank you plenty. So, Chief from one of our chief for Imojok, maybe you get more talk or just for talk or country talk or talk say bye bye. You know, for do that one too.
I can is valuable.
Confirm.
All right,
And
confirm.
with that,
Bye bye. VP,
yeah,
may I
with
turn
that,
now? Just talk for people then for Libya bye bye for country talk.
talk of
No,
contem.
no, yeah, I think that one I can speak it. So no, but and don't contact if you let nguli you try to just see mbungwe mbo warrior be atem otabu nguli ajum yo jebe sendrole bu do you gap bu tangan tite bu konte
Confirm. They talk say
wow.
if lion in meet up cutting grass in not chop now because it already flop. So the fact say no be talk pigeon, it no mean that say it and be assimilated. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to this the third edition. We want to thank the gentlemen and the officials, the top diplomats of our War of Liberation of the Governing Council, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Secretary of State. You guys are we thank you to attend this program, and then we have round up this program. This is the third edition of having a frank conversation in this new program, The Interview. We will continue to broadcast this program every Sunday, 6 p.m. Amber time, Alabukam time, and we will see you next week. Take care of yourself, protect yourself from COVID-19, and see you next week in the fourth edition. God bless you.
God bless you, Ambazonia.
ACN TV, the finest voice that celebrates your unsung heroes and the silent voices behind your diplomatic victories. ACN TV, the mouthpiece for the defense of Ambazonia. ACN TV, focused, uncensored, undiluted. Stay tuned on ACN TV. We will be right back.